Hey everybody, and welcome back to another installment of Brand Federation's Beer and Brands, our excuse to travel around Richmond and visit all the best breweries and talk about brands. It's basically the conversation Kelly and I would have over beers if there were no camera in the room. So welcome back. We are here at Castleburg Brewery here in Richmond with Emily Cerny, the taproom manager and events manager, and here she is. Emily, what do we got?
So we have the Castleburg Cream Ale and the You Killed My Father Prepare to Die IPA. It's a double IPA.
Oh, I love it.
What is a double IPA?
So it's just some more hops added in there. It adds, the bitterness level, and also it adds the alcohol content. That's an 8%, so be careful with that point.
Oh, I got it. Excellent.
This could be interesting.
Excellent. I love any kind of beer that's a reference to Princess Bride and Inigo Montoya. So cheers.
Cheers.
All right. And we will be back
That was good.
in a few minutes to talk with Emily and learn a little more about Castleburg. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here.
All right, Kelly. So we thought we could get very kind of practical in this installment of Beer and Brands. And have
It's about time.
It's about time, right? Something people can actually use.
You could actually use this stuff.
So we thought that it would be interesting to have a conversation about a conversation that many marketing directors think about a lot and have to have often, which is the conversation with the senior stakeholders at your company about why a strong brand is important and how to invest in it. So I want to have a conversation about what those conversations look like, where they sometimes come off the rails, what anybody who's watching this who knows they have to have that conversation with their CFO or their CEO, what they should keep in mind as they start to formulate that conversation so that they can impress upon those folks how important it is for their organization to have a strong brand. So the first question we can start with is, what are the biggest misconceptions that senior people who are not brand professionals might have about branding?
Well, there are a lot of them. I would say you've got to start with the fact that some people look at branding or think about branding and they think of it as a logo or a slogan or a jingle or an ad, all of which are tactics that can be used to express a brand and sometimes done exceptionally well. I mean, there are incredible design systems out there to bring life to a brand. But that's not what a brand is. That's just an element of a broader package of what a brand is. Mm-hmm. So first of all, they see it as tactical as opposed to a foundational strategy that guides a business. And then I think another misconception sometimes when people think about brand is they think about it as all about the messaging that happens between the company and the consumer, the conversation through advertising and social media. Again, parts of a brand, but a brand is something that starts internally. In fact, it is most noteworthy if the internal culture is aligned around that brand.
Yep.
So those are some things that I think are commonplace. The final thing I would say is that I hear that is a misconception is that a brand is built on this idea that we can find out what the consumer wants to hear and we can tell them that.
Yeah, right.
And we'll be more successful.
Yep.
And there's a certain logic to that.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Sure.
But the problem is that it makes for a very trivial brand that isn't actually delivering the things that they're promising to deliver. And frankly, none of us are interested in companies, people, ideas that are trying to pander to us. Mm-hmm. If you went to a great place to drink like Castleburg and you met somebody that you didn't know and they said, well, what do you like? And they replied to you, well, what do you like?
Exactly.
Well, I like baseball. I also like baseball. You'd be like, what's going on?
It's so true. There's so much more to marketing than holding up a mirror to your target audience.
Exactly.
It's so easy to misconceive it as that. And I think that the pitfall that people have when they follow that path is that they think, well, if I just listen to the consumer will tell me what to do. And I'll go do what he or she tells me to do. And the chances of that activity being completely inauthentic to your company and the brand you want to build are so high that you're going to bring this thing back into your organization and say, well, I heard this in research. We need to give them this, this, and this. And you're going to look at your company and go, well, we're not built to give people this, this, and this. We're built to give them that. When the fact is, if you gave them that and you talked about it in the right way, they would love it. They would love it more than what they asked for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The consumer is not always right. Never has been always right. If you ask a consumer, what they want in a computer, they might say, well, give me one that's really affordable. Apple would say, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. We don't do that. You can find it somewhere else, but we don't do apples that are really affordable. And it doesn't turn us off. It turns us on. We say, okay, tell us why. And that's the key. Explaining.
You need to find the Simpsons episode where Homer designs a car based on focus groups. It's the funniest damn thing I've ever seen.
Oh, I've got to see that.
It's hilarious. But so I can't tell you the number of times I've been in meetings or just before a meeting's about to start with a very senior audience where somebody has said, whatever you do, don't say brand. Because brand is a dirty word here. And it's a dirty word because people don't understand it, or they understand it on a very superficial way. They think it's a money pit that I'm gonna throw millions of dollars at it, and all I'm gonna end up with is a flashy ad campaign that I can't really afford. That's not gonna move my business at all. Or they think, like you said, it's a logo, and all those things are wrong.
Absolutely wrong. I had a client once tell me when I met with them, this is a large global company that had hired us to do branding work. Their chief operating officer met with me and said, I want you to know, I think this is garbage. And I said, okay, well, tell me a little bit more of why you think that. And he said, I just think branding is putting lipstick on a pig. It doesn't matter what you say about a company if they're not doing it. And I said, well, you and I have that point of view in common. But it speaks to that misconception.
Yeah.
That what we're going to do is hire somebody to tell stories about us that we think will be relevant to the consumer without any recognition for what we're actually good at, what we're passionate about delivering, what our people care about. And so, if that's all branding is to you, I can understand why you wouldn't be very interested in it.
Yep. It's one of the things that grates my teeth when I listen to news stories and they talk about certain politicians being great at branding. What they mean is they're great at spinning lies. And damn it, that's not what this is. Right? So
Not at all.
One of the best agency taglines that I've ever seen is one that's hundreds of years old from McCann Erickson, where they say they're about truth well told. And it's a great way to talk about what a brand is. It's the truth about you told in a way that will resonate with your audience because you know things about that audience. And you can bring those two things together. You're not trying to turn your company into something that you heard that audience wants, that you'll never be. You're not trying to foist something about you on that audience that you know they don't want. You're trying to tell the truth about what you've done that brings that value out to that audience in a way that has never occurred to them that they will love.
I love that.
Yeah.
So then what do you say? Now we know there are a lot of misconceptions out there, Matt, but if we're trying to be practical for a change and we want to give folks out there who are having the conversation about why should we invest in branding, what are some of the advantages that you would talk to them about?
I think there are real business advantages here. So you can talk about the real economic value that's been proven that a strong brand provides to an organization, right? So you've got companies like Interbrand and FutureBrand who do brand valuation studies. Obviously, they've got a dog in this fight, but they're coming up with numbers that are $4 billion. That is direct business value that the Apple brand contributes to the Apple company. That's an interesting way to speak in financial language that a CFO will understand and connect that financial value to the brand. So that's an interesting way to talk about it. But I also find it helpful to broaden the value of this brand beyond just top line growth. And one of the most powerful arguments I've seen is the power of a brand to motivate and inspire internal audiences. Because those C-level executives, regardless of what function they represent, care about the people who work at that company. And they want them to be excited and inspired to work at that company. And a strong brand is first and foremost, and probably most dramatically and kind of strongly felt by the people who work at that company. Because they're the ones who live and breathe this company every day, right? And when you can communicate what's special about that brand and have the internal audience connect with it and have it resonate with them, it will quickly change the tenor of a company. So I'm thinking to an experience I had when we worked with UPS. And this was years ago when we introduced the What Can Brown Do For You campaign,
Mhm.
right? The day
Great
after
campaign.
that introduction, we got an email from our senior client there. And it wasn't about how, the TV spots looked great or the process was awesome or the strategy was brilliant. He had a line in there that said, "My company is prouder than I've ever seen it. Our people have their chest out and their shoulders back and their heads held high. You've changed this organization." That's what he put his finger on. And I think that's a power of a brand that a lot of senior people understand but don't often immediately recognize.
That's interesting. I think probably we hear at Brand Federation more often than not when we've completed some work with a client, they say, "I knew this was going to be important for us from a marketing perspective. I had no idea it would be so powerful from an internal perspective,
Yeah.
generating pride." Maybe not surprisingly, because if we take a complex thing like a company and we can say, "Here is why the work you do matters," and has to continue, why the market is looking for you for leadership in this particular dimension, and you're doing it already, because obviously we build on truth, but you can do it even better in the future. It's kind of an empowering thought for
Yeah.
employees. Okay, I get it now. And one of the things, when you talk about problems with how corporate leaders look at branding, many corporations, many organizations, nonprofits, corporations, any kind of organization, they've got a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of moving parts, big, complex webs of human resources, supply chain management, product delivery and development, pricing, customer service. And when you're inside of that, one, nothing ever feels like it's good enough, right? I got to fix customer service. Supply chain's driving me crazy.
Yeah.
New product development is slowing down. We don't have anything new to tackle our competition with. And it can feel like this ship that doesn't have a rudder. Branding is one of the best ways to give a company a rudder. A clear understanding, you don't have to be great at everything, but be great at these things, because that's what you're known for, and that's what you can become famous for. And I sometimes think CEOs today, including us as business leaders, we have too many choices. We're not short of choices. We've got a new technology to install and operate, all variety of forms of new marketing tools and tactics, including social media, digital media, and so many others. We have product development and innovation, which means we should be doing more new stuff all the time. And the more complex the world of business gets, the more important it is to simplify down your view of what it is that's important to deliver. Because it can cut through all of that, and you can say, yeah, I don't have to chase everything.
Yeah.
I can be really good at this, and that's going to be plenty good.
I love this rudder idea because I think it gets to another aspect of a powerful brand that senior managers will acknowledge but don't think about very often, which is that not only is it a good proposition to put in front of the world that hopefully builds your top line and grows your customer base and does all the things that we know strong brands can do, it's a filter internally that they can use to decide what they should or shouldn't do on a very operational level, right? So should we pursue this merger that just came across my desk? Well, let's look at it through the lens of the brand. Is it going to help us deliver this promise that our brand is making? How should we think about HR and hiring? What kind of people should we bring into the organization to fulfill the promise that this brand is making? So the idea of a brand is a guidepost, not just to how you talk to customers and prospects, but how you make internal decisions is a really important aspect of it that your senior management needs to understand.
Absolutely. We have worked with companies, and the understanding of what we need to deliver to the customer and what we really shouldn't try to deliver to the customer has led to significant change. I remember once working with a global medical products company, and they had a division, and as a result of this branding study, the CEO said, "I don't know why we're in this business. It doesn't seem to make sense to me." And I said, "Not to me either."
That's exactly it.
No, and they sold it off. They did fine. The people in that business did fine. We didn't recommend firing anybody, but they had just, again, responded to the complexity of the world, seized the opportunity, and there's nothing wrong with a little guided opportunism. But when you know what you really want to be famous for, then your opportunism gets to be more strategic.
Exactly. Strategic opportunism.
Hey, I like that. It's sketchy.
You can have it.
There you go.
Take it. Yeah. So we've talked about the misconceptions people need to be aware of that their senior management probably has about brands. And if you go into these conversations knowing that those misconceptions are out there, you can address them before they become a problem, right? It's all the things we talked about. We've talked about the advantages that brands have in addition to the more proximate or obvious advantages of top line growth, revenue growth, customer growth, things like that. There are other things that a senior manager might acknowledge and need to understand come as a result of having a strong brand. Are there other things that you've found effective in talking to senior managers who are not brand professionals about the power of brands?
Yeah, I think one that is not talked enough about is customer loyalty. We talk a lot about acquisition of customers when we talk about marketing. Can I get this new customer that I want to get? And that's, you got to do that. But customer retention is much more valuable than customer acquisition. A customer that you're able to retain for longer contributes to the lifetime value of that customer and therefore the profitability of the company in significant ways. And understanding how to build that loyalty where a customer literally loves working with you, wants to continue working with you, and will survive, that relationship will survive if you do it right, that bad day. Because every company has them, right? You're going to call Verizon and something's going to be a hot mess. How they respond to that is going to be bad or good. But if it's bad, you will jump unless you're pretty loyal to Verizon.
Yeah, it's true.
You give them the benefit of the doubt. And you know, I've often thought that if somebody gets a computer, they just got excited, I'm getting a brand new computer, I went to the Apple store, this thing is what I've been wanting for a long time, and it doesn't work properly. They think, wow, I've got to tell Apple about this because they're going to want to know that one slipped through poorly. If they buy a Dell and they open up that Dell and it doesn't work properly, they're more likely to say, Dell sucks. And the difference is that loyalty factor that is brought about by an understanding that I trust this brand, I like these people, I like the ideas behind this company, and therefore I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt.
And I want to help them. Right?
Yes.
Me calling you and telling you your computer's not working and you need to know is my way of helping you.
Oh, absolutely. Customer complaints are almost always coming to you from a customer who loves you, from a customer who cares about you, because it takes time to write a complaint.
Yeah, right. It's easier just to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are free, good information, and if you respond well to that complaint, they're going to become even more loyal. So loyalty is something that brand can have a significant influence on. It can drive an increased lifetime value. It can drive profitability. It makes sure that your sales force work is effective. If your sales force is bringing people in the front door, but bad customer service and lack of loyalty is driving them back out the back door, they've got to work harder to keep you in business. And I think we'd all like to think, I fought the hard fight, I won a new customer, and they're going to stay here for a while.
That's when the work starts.
That's when the work starts. Yeah. And the other reason that branding contributes to loyalty is because you are more likely, if you are really clear about what makes you unique and special, you're more likely to not just win the new customer, but win the right customer. You know, if you're a super price conscious person, and you get a coupon or something and you stumble into a Starbucks and you enjoy that Starbucks, that's great. But you probably won't go back because you're super price conscious and they're not low price. But if they focus their branding on that customer that aligns with their values, I want a really good cup of coffee and a really good experience, and I know they'll do that for me, then you've won that customer. You're likely to keep happy for a long period of time.
So here's another thing that I bet will happen to many of you out in video podcast land. You're going to sit across the table from your CFO, and you're going to say, well, Ms. CFO, I need X millions of dollars to do a brand effort. I need to run a strategy process. I need to define the positioning. I need to create marketing communications that deliver that communications. And she's going to look at you and she's going to say, okay, what will the ROI be on that? What's the answer?
That's a good question. What do you think the answer is, Matt?
Well, I've been in this position.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe this, and I'll be interested in what you think about it. I think that a really smart CFO who is bound and determined to not do a brand-related effort will argue it to death, will kill it. Because I think the honest answer to that question is, that's the right question. I can't tell you exactly right now. I can tell you what I think will happen if we do this well, what the benefits of it will be, but I can't sit here and say, if we do all these things right, the ROI will be 8x or 4x. And anybody who tells you they can is lying to you. And I do believe that, having been through some of these conversations, that there's an element of belief that has to exist in that organization at the senior-most levels, in the value of having a strong brand that transcends the ability to account and attribute every cent or dollar of activity of that branding work.
Yeah, it's interesting. When you think about branding, what it all adds up to, the internal work, the external communications, the bond that you form with the customer, it's all built on building a great reputation for an organization, and a reputation for something specific, something that feels tangible to the consumer. And when we think about it as a human being, why is it valuable to have a great reputation? We don't answer that with numbers.
Right.
There's no number in the answer to that question. Yeah. It's great to have a good reputation because it makes your people feel proud. Mm-hmm. It makes you feel clear about the decisions that you're making. It makes the people on the outside world want to connect with you, want to engage with you, want to buy from you, want to talk to you, feel proud that they're doing so. And yes, that does drive a number of economic metrics. Mm-hmm. But it shouldn't be hard to figure out why it's important for an organization to have a great reputation, to be respected and admired. And that's what branding does for you.
It's so powerful to reframe it as that, because it gets you past that immediate question, or at least puts you in a position to give an honest answer to somebody who asks it. But it also connects back into that idea of a brand as something that adds value to your relationships with your customers, with your prospects, and it intuitively makes sense to the way I experience the world, which is that I am more likely to want to form a reputation with somebody I respect and understand than somebody I either don't understand or, worse, don't respect.
Yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer. And if you understand, if you tell that CFO that branding is to a corporation what reputation is to an individual, they're both built on strength of character. Mm-hmm. They should be able to get that. Now, if they don't get that, again, you can always throw out the fact that we as human beings make decisions based on collaborating with or engaging with organizations and individuals that demonstrate strength of character. Mm-hmm. And so we're more likely to buy their stock. That drives valuation.
Yep.
There's no question that the studies that have been done show that branding, the stronger brands have the higher valuation, and it kind of makes sense. I mean, there's some pretty sleazy companies out there. I don't want to buy their stock, even if they've made reasonable profits. Mm-hmm. I want to invest my dollars with organizations that align with my beliefs, and that's becoming even more true, not just of individuals.
ESG investing is huge.
Absolutely. We're seeing it across big private equity groups and group investors and hedge funds. We're starting to invest in those organizations that we admire. We want to work for organizations we admire. Mm-hmm. We want to buy products for organizations we admire. We're likely to forgive the flaws of organizations we admire, and we're likely to stay with them longer. And each one of those could be translated to math. But I don't even think that, I think the CFO that needs to do the math before they engage in the product doesn't quite understand what branding really can do.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to say to her is look, it's not fair for me to be able to give a dollars and cents accounting before the fact of what the ROI of this effort will be. It is absolutely fair for you to expect me to say, what do you think the benefits of this effort will be? And we should talk that through in detail, right?
Yeah.
But it's also fair for me to say to that CFO, we're going to measure the hell out of this effort. And here's what we are going to measure. We're going to measure awareness and affinity and likelihood to buy. And we're going to measure sales, and we're going to measure customer lifetime value, and we're going to measure digital and social engagement. So the measurements are numerous and could go on forever. And they should. We should measure the hell out of our branding efforts. So the idea that we can't give a dollars and cents accounting of it before the fact is no way an excuse for us to say, so we're not going to measure it. That would be crazy.
That's interesting because it goes to another misconception about branding. And this misconception sometimes happens with people inside of the branding industry. The idea that it's just about purpose, and we're going to give you a brand haiku that sounds good, and here's Jim, he's the brand Sherpa, and it can be looked at as a soft art, as an art all about emotions and feelings. Emotions and feelings are important in the branding equation, but all about emotions and feelings, and not something that would stand the rigor that a CFO, a COO would be looking for.
Yeah.
And in fact, what you've got, if you've got a firm that's out there writing brand poetry for you, and I know I'm not going to make some friends here, but you probably got the wrong branding firm, because the work really does need to be truth-based, as we talked about. And truth-based means you need to do the research to find the truth. Mm-hmm. And that research needs to be rigorous, and that's both economic and perceptual research.
Yep.
And so if that project doesn't start with doing good research, really understanding those things, looking at the metrics, and then looking at how they might change over time, or how you would like for them to change over time, you're missing the rigor of this process.
All right, so clearly there are lots of issues you can deal with and should deal with in advance of that conversation with your C-suite. Maybe more than what we've covered here today, but I think we've done at least a good beginning of setting up and knocking down some of the misperceptions, and
no question,
laying out some of the points that you should make to your senior management. They need to understand branding probably better than they do, and there's nobody better positioned to do it than you. All right, and we're back with Emily Cerny from Castleburg. So welcome back, Emily.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tell us about this place. Tell us about Castleburg Brewery. Where'd it come from?
It came from, our founder and head brewer, Carl Hamburg.
Great name for a brewer.
Right, exactly.
Carl with a K, I hope.
It is Carl with a K.
Oh,
so the name Castleburg is actually a play off of his last name. I guess in German it means a fortified city or a castle, so that's where Castleburg came from.
Okay.
He actually sold his motorcycle to start a small business. Like, he really is
amazing.
like the epitome
That's
of
the best.
just like, he was a home brewer and wanted to open this place up, and it's been, it's grown since. We used to just be half the capacity and knocked the wall down and expanded it. We're still Richmond's smallest brewery, only 2-barrel system, but we are, hanging in there.
Good brewery.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about Richmond, is a pretty good beer scene.
Oh, yeah.
There's how many now?
Tens of them, I think in the 40s now, maybe.
Oh my
gosh.
There's a lot.
So how, in that environment,
Mm-hmm.
how do you try and stand out and get noticed?
So it is tricky, but I think it's interesting. You guys were talking earlier about loyalty, and I think that is something that is our driving force here.
Mhm.
Is I'm going on my 4th year being here, and we always like to say, like, we're a family here. We're a small team. We really keep it feeling like a family, and I think our patrons feel that too. We're not the type of place. It's like, we still, of course, get through traffic of people doing the beer trails and
Mm-hmm.
doing that, but the basis of the people coming into Castleburg are regulars.
Mm-hmm.
There was somebody who was traveling from out of town, and he was sitting at the bar chatting with me, and 3 different people came up, and I was like, "Oh, hey, Mike, you want me to get your mug?" I was like, "Oh, Cody, I got darts for you." It's that, like, we know each other. We have that, like, family environment, and people keep coming back because it really does feel like home. We've had people say that, like, we're very not pretentious, and
It shows.
I appreciate that about working here. Is like, it's just good beer and good vibes, I guess.
That's cool. Good beer and good vibes.
Yeah.
I like it.
I think you got it. There's your brand.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell us, where can folks find Castleburg?
So we're on Ownby Lane in technically Newtown West, but right outside of Scott's Addition on that same road with Main Line and Hardywood, some of the bigger boys.
Nice. Excellent.
That's
Well, that's
great.
great. Thank you for having us. This has been awesome. The place is terrific. The beer's great.
It really is.
And we really appreciate it. So
We'll be back. We will be loyal.
we will be loyal.
Please
We're going to
do.
have mugs back behind the bar. You're
Yeah.
going to say, Kelly and Matt, welcome back.
That's right.
We like
Absolutely.
Norm. Well, this wraps up another edition of Brand Federation's Beer and Brands. Thanks for joining us. Kelly, thanks for being here, as always.
Glad to
Emily,
be here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
We hope you've gotten something practical out of this. We hope you've gotten some weapons in your arsenal as you prepare that conversation for your senior management. And we look forward to seeing you on the next installment of Brand Federation's Beer and Brands. Who knows where we'll be, but we'll be at another awesome brewery here in Richmond, and we will see you then.